Hey, so something that I wanted to talk a real quick about was drawing and using particular the brush tool and doing that in drawing object mode, right? So basically, this can be something that can be helpful to you, but it can also be something that potentially hinders other animators in the future. So basically, I draw this stroke, right? I draw this stroke in this color. And without drawing object mode on, when I draw another stroke going through it, or, intersecting with it, it's all one big massive, shape, right? Now, if I go into the properties when I have my brush tool selected, if I go into the properties menu, there will be a thing below the fill and stroke menu that says drawing object mode, and it will say if it's on or off. And when drawing object mode is on, basically what that means is I draw these two strokes that are intersecting each other, but they're separate, and they're both these kind of objects, right, that you kind of click into and everything. And that can actually be super helpful. Potentially, like say, I wanted to draw like a rose, right? And I wanted to focus on I have this kind of shape for the outside of the rose, and I want to focus on drawing these kind of inner petals, right? So the way I would do that, because I want to focus on drawing these lines, inside that indicate petals, basically. It's good, to have, sometimes it's good to have separated strokes or the drawing object mode on because it lets you deal with things a little more individually. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's what you want, but basically, when you're saving your file, if it could end up in the hands of somebody else, even if drawing object mode is what you like and how you want to, do your stuff, you're going to want to hit right click on it and hit break apart, which will be under transform, arrange, align, and all that stuff. Control B. You want to select all these strokes and break them apart so it goes back to normal, right? So, and the reason that is because this was something I actually struggled a bit with, was I believe in Animator I was having so many issues coloring one of her files, right? Like I was supposed to color things like the skin tone that it was palletized to, but there kept being like these little bits of the skin tone that she had before. And I believed that was because, I believe now it's because of the object drawing mode. I didn't really know what was happening. So, basically, we're going again with this. So, we have these strokes, right? Bep, 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 bep. And hopefully you don't have to recolor things because, when you start coloring, you have a good enough palette guide, but sometimes, bugs and things happen, and everything. So, and, recoloring is part of the process sometimes. Now, I have this kind of pink blob. I want to color it purple, right? But because drawing object mode was on, I can't color it all at once, and I have to deal with all these little, bits. And depending on scale or how many different pieces there are, that can get really cumbersome when you're trying to color something, basically. So, what you want to do is, just break it apart at the end, because that'll make it easier on you. And when you're confronting a file, if you have a file that you're confronting where it's being hard to color in that way, just break it apart. you know, that will save you a lot of time. It would have saved me a lot of time if I knew that. And sometimes drawing object mode will just turn on you, but it's a quick fix. You just select your brush tool, go into properties, and turn it off. And that's literally all you need to do. And from there on, it'll just be, the brush tool will just be normal. And if you confront something that was drawn in object mode that you just don't want to deal with in that mode for whatever reason, it's annoying you, just you can just select all of what you're trying to edit and just break it apart. And that'll put it back into normal and hopefully back into a state where you can work with it. And that's just a little bit about drawing object mode, and that was something that I did confront within this process, so hopefully talking about it a little bit saves you a bit of time in terms of either figuring out, you know, like what it is or what the problem is if you're having this weird problem where all the strokes are separate, or it can also help you if drawing object mode is something that will be helpful to you in your process, because sometimes it is, but just break it apart when you're done.